Hello guys, welcome back. I hope you're all doing great. I hope everyone's summer is going well. We're in mid-August. I feel like I'm looking forward to the fall season. I like the in-between seasons, like the fall and the spring. And I'm already sort of thinking about what fragrances I want to add to my collection for the fall, what fragrances I'm going to pull out to wear for the cooler weather. But I think we have some weeks left before we get to that point. So in today's video, I thought that I would catch up with you guys and talk about fragrances that I've added to my collection. I would say over the course of the summer, over the course of the last maybe 3-4 months. They're not fragrances that are geared towards the fall season. They're just random fragrances that I've added to my collection. Some are appropriate for all seasons. Some are probably really good for the fall, and others maybe are considered more spring and summer fragrances. So it's a random group of fragrances. I'm just going to touch upon them really quickly, and we'll start with one that was a blind buy, although I think I'm going to be talking about blind buys a lot because no matter how many times I say I'm not going to blind buy, I do. I'm okay with it, but you should test before you purchase a fragrance because I've had many unsuccessful blind buys for sure. I should probably upload a video talking about unsuccessful blind buys. A lot of them are already decluttered and sold from my collection. So the first one here is called Gilded, and it's from a house that I have no familiarity with, Eau de Boujee. I read some reviews and I saw a little bit of hype about this fragrance, so I went ahead and blind bought it based on what it sounded like. And I would say that this one is actually a good fragrance for the fall and the colder season. It is texture on skin. It's this aromatic, saffron-y textured fragrance. It's kind of leathery, but not leather that's dark and smoky. There's a freshness to the fragrance. It feels like a leather that's coming from saffron, like that saffron sort of aromatic spice with a freshness from, I think, something citrusy in here, and it's a texture on skin. It's interesting. I'm not sure what I think about this fragrance yet. I have to get to know it a little better. You guys can let me know in the comments if you're familiar with this one. I'm not sure how available this is in the US. I purchased this from overseas, and like I said, it was a blind buy. And it's interesting. I'm not familiar with the house of Eau de Boujee, and I wasn't familiar with this one. So I would say that it's texture on skin, a saffron-y, leathery fragrance with a sort of freshness. So I need to get to know this one a little bit better. Then I added a fragrance that I spoke about. This is Frederic Malle's Une Fleur de Cassie. I spoke about this in one of my recent videos talking about discoveries. I really did enjoy the sample, and I went ahead and purchased a 50 ml bottle. And this one, the one that I purchased, I thought was a pre-reformulation version of this fragrance, but I don't think that's the case. So in the back here is the percentage volume, which I thought denoted a pre-formulation for this fragrance. The original Une Fleur de Cassie was a little bit more animalic, and I believe that Porcelaine interviewed, I'm not sure if he interviewed Dominique Ropillon. This is a Dominique Ropillon fragrance, and it's confirmed that the fragrance did undergo a reformulation, and the original was more animalic. So this is a floral fragrance that's aldehydic. It's definitely a nod to vintage style fragrance, which I totally appreciate. There is an animalic component to the fragrance. I don't know if it comes from an indolic quality of the florals themselves, because the florals come off like dried up flowers that are close to death and not fresh. Yet there is something powdery and fresh that comes along with a different part of the fragrance. So I really do enjoy this. I'm glad that I have a bottle in my collection. There's something almost a little bit dewy and sort of mossy that comes along with these indolic flowers and this animalic note in the fragrance. But I'll have to wear this and review it, a video just for this fragrance, Une Fleur de Cassie. But I did add this to my collection. The next one is from the house of Paris Monte Carlo, and this is Jasmine de Pais. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. This is a 50 ml bottle, and the reason that I purchased this, blind buy of course, is this is a Jean-Claude Ellena creation. He's the perfumer behind this fragrance, and I like Jean-Claude Ellena as a perfumer. I like his style of perfumery, and I'm on a jasmine kick as well as a tuberose kick, and I just sort of wanted to buy this because I heard great things, and it really is a very, very nice take on jasmine. It is an almost herbal green jasmine that feels very almost photorealistic without sweetness. A lot of jasmine fragrances I find add a certain level of sweetness. So this is not Tom Ford's Jasmine Rouge. This is not Frasai's Fuego Lento, another great jasmine fragrance, but there's no sweetness in here. It's almost like an herbal sort of photorealistic green jasmine, if that makes sense. Yes, it's floral, but I think this one mixes jasmine with tagettes, which is marigold. So the qualities of marigold, I think, lend themselves to something almost a little bit herbal, which is what I get in here along with jasmine. So it's a very natural, almost green, herbal twist on jasmine or take on jasmine. I wore this a good 4 or 5 times already and I'm enjoying it, so I'm glad that I added it to my collection. And the 50 ml size is perfect because I have a lot of jasmine fragrances. I have a lot of floral fragrances, so sometimes these smaller sizes are good for people with big fragrance collections like myself. So the next one is from the house of Gucci. And look at the bottle of this one. I really, really love the bottle. I feel like I needed to pick out a fragrance from this line because the bottles are so sweet. This one is the Virgin Violet. There's another one that's Iris, Crying Iris or something. I probably should have gotten that one because I love Iris, but I ended up with this one. And this is Violet Iris Musky. It's ethereal, it's innocence. It's innocence in a bottle, and if you like powdery fragrances, this is definitely one that's sort of enjoyable and almost comforting in a way. I wore this to jury duty. I was called to jury duty early in the month. It was a one-day thing. I walked 1 mile to the courthouse. I wore this, I enjoyed it, and there was nothing going on, and so I was done with jury duty in one day. But this was the fragrance that I chose to wear, and it's innocent. It's an innocent, sweet, powdery iris violet, musky fragrance. So that's the Virgin Violet. Speaking of comforting and powdery fragrances, I finally added this to my collection. This one is from the house of MeoFuni, and this is Viole Nere. I love the packaging, by the way. The bottles are so substantial. The cap is really heavy. Reminds me a little bit of the caps of Oman luxury fragrances. Very heavy and substantial. Really, really nice. I purchased a travel size decant, a 10 ml of Viole Nere, waiting for the right time to add this to my collection because the fragrances are close to $300, I would say. It kept showing up on a discounter and it was sold out, and then showed up and sold out, and then I finally grabbed a tester. It came with the cap, it just didn't come in a box, and I am so happy to have this in my collection. This, I would say, is a top fragrance for me. Even though it's this soft irisy fragrance, if you look at the notes, the note breakdown, there are quite a number of notes in here. And what's interesting is that there are some notes in here that you would think would make the fragrance darker, but at the end of the day, it's like this irisy, powdery, really, really beautiful, calming, ethereal fragrance that I really do find soothing and cozy, and it's just beautiful, a beautiful, powdery, layered fragrance. I can't say enough good things about this one. I really like this. I'm glad that I have this in my collection finally. Viole Nere by MeoFuni. So the next one is one of the fragrances, and there are a few here, that I would call a really, really great buy. I think this is a 5-ounce bottle. This is from the House of Chloe, and this is from their Atelier de Fleur line. So they have a number of florals in here. There's one that focuses on ylang ylang that a lot of people mentioned I should try. I'm afraid that it's too sweet, but I will get a sample of that one. This one is Tuberosa 1974. What attracted me to this fragrance, which was of course another blind buy, is the fact that it was described as a fragrance meant to be a little bit throwback, a sort of take on tuberose, a little bit throwback, hence the 1974 in the name of the fragrance. And I really do like it. I enjoy it. I don't know it very well. I just got this a few days ago. What I like about this upon first impression is that it's a non-sweet, which I like. It's this non-sweet, sort of green, fresh take on tuberose. It reminds me a lot of Profumum Rama's Tuberosa, very similar. But I actually enjoyed this one more than that fragrance. I ended up selling that one. I did own it, and I ended up decluttering that fragrance. It's a green take on tuberose. It's a fresh take with some spicy nuances. That one is a little too in your face, the one from Profumum Rama. I found it a little too sharp. I have tuberose fragrances that are much creamier, like the one from Dusita. And this one, I feel, is the perfect compromise. It's this sort of fresh green take on tuberose without being sharp, too loud. And I think it's a fragrance that I would enjoy wearing in the evening after a day of work, or maybe even a hot summer day, because it's not too cloying and thick. It's not a sweet tuberose. It's really nice. It's a nice one. And the bottle is pretty big. I had no idea. I think I paid about $90 for this, and I thought it was a 100 ml size bottle. I wasn't paying attention, and it's larger. It's a pretty large bottle of perfume, so I can spray away. I'm not sure how the longevity is and the performance for this fragrance, but it's fine. It's a lovely, soft, green, fresh take on tuberose. So another one that was a great, great buy is Elie Saab's Essence number 1, the Rose fragrance. So the Essence line, I believe, is now a discontinued line, and all of the fragrances in the line were created by Francis Kurkdjian, and I've heard really, really great things. Why it's a discontinued line, I'm not quite sure. They're very limited in availability, very limited. I really want to get my hands on a bottle of number 3, the Amber fragrance, and they're being sold for about $200 and above on eBay or Mercari. This one was, I think, a $60 purchase, and I just ordered number 4, which is the Oud, also a $60 purchase. Beautiful packaging, very nice, substantial bottle, magnetic cap, really, really nice. I watched Robes 08 review this fragrance before I purchased it. So it was a blind buy, but when he describes fragrances, I pay attention. He's right on point, and so I trust his description of fragrances. So this one is obviously a rose fragrance, and to my nose, even though there are many different notes of rose in here, damask rose, Bulgarian rose, rose absolute, it's rose, 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 and the rose is sort of dark. It is delivered, Francis Kurkdjian style, it is delivered in this sort of like very refined, almost soft way. So if you look at the notes, you think that this might be some clawing, a sort of super mature, dark rose fragrance. It's not. It almost feels like a powdery iris, sort of elegant take on a soft rose. I find it soft, even though it's not a bright pink rose and the roses come off deep, lush, and maybe a dark velvety red, almost burgundy. It's a soft take. It almost feels like it's irisy, and rose does go powdery, so I keep saying iris, but what I mean to say is that it goes powdery, and it's really nice. Really, really nice. So I can't wait to get my nose on the Oud fragrance, and maybe soon I'll get the Amber as well and add it to my collection. I heard really good things, but I'm glad to have this one. This is really nice. I think this makes for a nice fall rose fragrance. So the next one that was also a third really, really good buy is Van Cleef & Arpels Bois de Riz. I like this so much that I'm thinking of getting another bottle of this one, just in case they discontinue it. Really, really nice fragrance. Very, very reminiscent of Christian Dior's Bois d'Argent, but the pre-reformulated version of Bois d'Argent. Now I have, I think it's from 2015, a version of Bois d'Argent, which is absolutely a stunning fragrance, and I had to decant it into this bottle here. I have a small bottle of the current version. I think it's a Francis Kurkdjian creation. This has been reformulated a few times, I think, but don't quote me. I think that originally this came out as an Eau de Cologne, and then it went to the Eau de Toilette, and you have a few reformulations of this fragrance. So this one from 2015, before they went into the bottles where the CD was connected and all that, pre-reformulation, is a beautiful irisy fragrance. I love this fragrance. And the current version, I should do a side-by-side on video. The current one is an absolutely more sweet, sort of creamy fragrance. It's very different. So there is something about reformulations. I know some people sort of irks them when people talk about batch codes and reformulations, but it is a thing. It is a thing. Bois d'Argent in its current version is not the same. It's more vanillic, and it doesn't have sort of the 3D experience that this one has. This has a 3D experience, and I love it. I will probably not be spending $600-700 if and when I finish that bottle. I have a little bit more in the original bottle that I need to decant into this one. There was a problem with the sprayer of the bottle. Nonetheless, I'm glad that I got my hands on that. I will not be spending $700 to get the pre-reformulated version of that fragrance. This one is actually a very, very nice option. Really nice option. It smells very, very similar. I didn't do a side-by-side comparison. I'm not saying it's a dupe or exactly the same, but it is in that scent profile for sure. It is on Parfumo. That is the one that you will see. You'll see Bois d'Argent by Dior, and that is true. They are on point. It is very, very reminiscent. So for about $85 plus tax, this is definitely worth picking up. I will pick up another bottle of this one. It's worth having in my collection. This is not a sweet fragrance from the house of Van Cleef and Arpels. They do have some fragrances that have gone with the trend of that sweet sort of clawing sort of scent profile. This is not one of them. This is really, really nice. And I wore this a few times on skin all day, as is Bois d'Argent. I think they both perform really nicely. I know some people criticize the performance of both that one and this one. I don't think that I have that problem. So Bois d'Iris by Van Cleef and Arpels, worth checking out. So the next one is from the house of Oriza Legrand. This is Relique d'Amour, and a lot of you make comments that I should try this. I spoke about Rev by this house, and this is quite an interesting fragrance. I had to blind buy this because I did make an effort to get a sample. I really did, and they were sold out, and I waited and waited, and then somebody was selling this on eBay, full with the box, and I purchased it. I know that the tassel, the black tassel, is a newer color. Originally they were, I think, multicolored or tan in color. So this is an interesting fragrance. I have to get to know it a little bit better. I sprayed this on skin earlier. It's very unique. It opens with this incense, and everyone describes a church like a stone church. I totally get it. I feel like I'm in a historic old European town where I'm walking through these little roads where there are stone historic churches, and there's also something a little bit dewy in here, so I feel like it's after the rain. Maybe there's some grass that's wet and you're getting that sort of dewy component along with incense. If you've ever walked into a historic church when it's really warm outside and you step in and you have this almost cooling effect, not from air conditioning, just sort of a natural cooling of being inside in a stone church that's a little bit dimmed. It's a really interesting fragrance. It transports you somewhere else. And then you have woody components. The woods definitely come in. So imagine in this church you have like big slats of wood across the ceiling. It's definitely different from anything that I have in my collection. And I am looking to delve into incense fragrances. I ordered some samples from Elie, and I also have the Comme des Garçons incense fragrance, which is, I think, a reference incense. But this is a nice incense fragrance. It's quite unique, and I feel like I need to get to know this one a little bit better. So that's Relique de Malle. The next one is a discontinued fragrance from the house of Penhaligons. This is Ostara, and this one is from 2015. It's a Bertrand Duchefort fragrance, and that's why I purchased it, and it is a beauty. It's complex, of course. There is green, there's floral, there's beeswax, there are spices in here. There's something a little bit fruity. And when I sprayed this, there's a little component in here that reminds me of Nuit de Tuberosa by the house of L'Artisan Parfumeur, which is also by the same perfumer. And I'm not saying that this smells like that tuberose fragrance, but there is a little piece of this that reminded me of a little piece of Nuit de Tuberosa, which is a favorite of mine as well. And I clearly like Bertrand Duchefort fragrances because I'm chasing down even discontinued ones. There's another one called Amaranthine, but they are selling those bottles for a lot of money, so I'm going to wait, but I will get my hands on that as well. So that's Ostada. Let me know if you guys are familiar with this one. I only have a partial here, but I'm glad to have it. So now let's talk about 3 fragrances from the house of Hermes, from their Hermessence line. I love this line of fragrances. They are described as sort of watercolor. They are soft. Not all of them are as soft as others, but overall they're soft fragrances. Overall, I think they're considered almost like watercolor fragrances that have a transparency to them. I really do enjoy this type of perfumery. I like this line, this Hermessence line, and I own quite a few fragrances from this line. I have Ambre Narguilé, I have Cuir d'Ange, I also have Cedre Sambac, which is a cedar with some jasmine, and I added Muguet Porcelaine to my collection. I got a full bottle, although these two are testers, I got a full bottle of Vetiver Tonka. Finally, I have the travel size. A beautiful take on Vetiver with Tonka. It's not gourmand. I really enjoy this one. I'm glad that I was able to get a full bottle. Even though there is no cap, that's fine. I was able to get this one and Osamnthe Yunnan for the price of getting one with a cap, so I can live with that. So this is a great take on Vetiver without going into a gourmand direction, even though there is tonka bean in here. I think there's hazelnut as well. It's a great fragrance. This one, Muguet Porcelaine, I just purchased. I purchased it from Fragflex. And there's someone that described this fragrance, I forget the name of the channel, Imitation Fragrances. I like how he describes fragrances. And he described getting a melon from this fragrance, and so I can't get away from that. So this was a blind buy, and Muguet is Lily of the Valley. And so when I first got this and sprayed it, I could not get away from the idea of melon, and I do get that. It's definitely sort of a green melon matching the color of the cap and the juice. At the end of the day, it's a soft Lily of the Valley fragrance, and I think that Lily of the Valley is an accord in a fragrance that's a little difficult to sort of achieve, and I think that they did a great job here. It's soft, it's fresh, it's green, and I wore this as my scent of the morning when I went running this morning, so I really did enjoy this one. So that's Muguet Porcelaine. And this one, I was really impressed, Osamnthe Yunnan. And this has osmanthus, it has a leather accord, it also has, I think, an apricot note. So it opens with something green and a little bit fruity, peachy. It's not too bright. And what I thought when I first sprayed this is that I was getting something almost like a cannabis note at the top, along with this peachiness. But I looked at the notes and it's a tea. There's a tea in here. So the tea has a little bit of smokiness, and it's sort of, I want to use the word darkens this a little bit. But nonetheless, even though there's leather and the Osamnthe goes a little bit textured as it dries down, there's never going to be anything rough and dark, I don't think, about an Hermes fragrance in this line. I don't think so. Although I do have a sample of the oud, and this was quite interesting. I did not expect this. This is pretty full-bodied for a fragrance in the Hermessence line and quite sweet. So I was surprised. It reminded me a little bit of Maison Francis Kurkdjian's Oud Satin Mood. Maybe not that sweet, but I was surprised at this one. I want to keep wearing this sample. It was interesting. But this Osamnthe Yunnan fragrance, I really like. As it dried down, it got a little bit darker, and you lose that peachiness. Any sort of peachy component that you get in the opening sort of mellows out, and the fragrance goes a little bit darker and textured from that leathery component. So I think I'm going to enjoy this one in the fall. I want to get my nose on the rose fragrance. I also want to try Santal Masoya, which is a sandalwood fragrance. They may be blind buys as well, because I see some testers available, although I do like having caps on my perfume bottles, I have to admit. So that is my addition from the house of Hermes. And then last but not least, I got a travel size of BDK's Gris Chanel. So this one is definitely a fragrance that I got as I'm thinking about fall fragrances. I'm looking to add something of a creamy, warm, cozy sandalwood to my collection. And I considered a few options. I used to own L'Orchestre Parfums Piano Santal, but I think that one is too sweet. It wasn't for me. I gave it to my son. And I also considered Luster by the House of Amouage. I have a tester that I've been wearing. I just don't think I can get along with that fragrance. I'm not sure. There are already some great prices for those fragrances. I feel like there's something synthetic and sweet and thick, especially in the dry down, that sort of lingers with those three fragrances from the essences, but I may reconsider, I'm not sure. So I did go back to this, and I say go back because I liked this about a year and a half ago. I did like it. I bought the Extra and I sold it, and then I got the travel size because it is a nice tea fragrance. It's cozy. It has the sandalwood, and I feel like it's a great sort of fall weather fragrance. It's a nice fragrance to wear with a sweater. It just seems like a comforting, nice fall fragrance to have. So I thought the travel size would be great for now while I consider some other fragrances, like I said, including Santal Masoya from the House of Hermes. So that's it for today, guys. These are some fragrances that I've added to my collection over the course of the summer, the last 3 to 4 months. Let me know if you're familiar with any of these, what you guys think. And as always, thank you so much for watching, your support, and your comments. Until next time, bye guys.